the experiences of social researchers in the Global South, which was edited by Oliver Mutanga and Faith Mkwananzi, who are with us in the room today. Thank you very much for joining us, Oliver Mutanga and Faith. Without much ado about nothing, I'm going to hand over to Faith to introduce our speakers.
Thanks everyone. I think we will introduce the speakers after Oliver has given his introduction, and then I will follow up with the speakers. Oliver, it's over to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
So thank you so much for coming to our book launch. So the way that we are going to do is, since this is an edited book, we decided that as editors, we are not going to say much about the content. We have asked some contributors to say something about the process that informed their contributions and their book chapters. But I'll say something about the whole book process, how it came about, and the lessons that we learned. Then I'll pass over to Faith. So before I do that, again, I have to thank Professor Melanie for hosting us again as we launch this book. And I want to acknowledge, because as I was telling Faith, that it's really befitting to launch this book here, because the idea behind this book came from Professor Melanie Walker in 2023. After a visit, we were discussing in her office, and I was just relating, telling her about my visit to Zimbabwe for my project, which I was doing with indigenous populations in Zimbabwe. And then she said, but why not do a special issue? So that's where the idea came from. So I'll say something more about how then it then developed into a book and not a special issue. So the project was not only about producing a book, but when I then invited Faith, we saw it also as an opportunity to create opportunities for scholars and for ideas that might otherwise have not found place to be shared. So that was the idea behind our book. Ultimately, it then became a particular way of being in our interaction with higher education. So initially, after talking to Professor Walker and when I returned back to Kazakhstan, I then engaged with Faith if she could come on board, and she agreed. Then we started to develop this project as a special issue for the International Journal of Social Research Methodology. And we approached them with our ideas, and they agreed to have that special issue. And by the way, the special issue is now complete. All the chapters now, all the articles are now within that journal. So we then developed that idea for a special issue, which would provide a platform for scholars to reflect their complexities when conducting research in Global South. And what we termed Global South researchers really fell in 3 different categories. So we're looking at Global South researchers who are residing in the Global South. We're also looking at Global South researchers who are based in the Global North, but they do their research in the Global South. Then we're also looking at non-natives in the Global North who do their research in the Global South. So we then use the platform, which we want to acknowledge also, Dr. Leon Musav from the University of Liverpool. He has his decolonial critique platform. So we use that to send out a call for our book chapters. And we received an overwhelming response. Then we said, we discussed together to say, so how do we deal with this? We now have received more than what we could have imagined. So we then said that one way is maybe to only take a few and do a special issue, but because we were looking at improving and really uplifting the other Global South researchers, we then said those that don't fall within the book chapter will be that those that are not will not come into the special issue will fall in the book chapters. So that's how we extended our project from a special issue to a book chapter. So the special issue drew contributions globally from scholars based in the US, Canada, Australia, Spain, and the UK, whose backgrounds reflect heritage from China, Ghana, Uganda, Peru, and Brazil. Then we then extended the other abstracts for the book project. And for the book project, we had contributors from who had done researches in Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Australia. So what we then decided was that really this book project, we took it as an attempt to pay forward. And by pay forward, we decided that we have to give back to Global South research, because our background, both of us, we had the privilege of being under a part of a very generous research community that had invested in us generously during our PhD journey. And we had benefited a lot from mentors who had challenged our thinking, colleagues who had read endless drafts and conversations that stretched into the evenings. And so we said, let's take this book project as a way of mentorship. So even up to today, we have taken that decision to say, let's build relationships that are built on trust, generosity, and shared intellectual purpose. So HDCA has also been very part of our journey, because it promotes and it teaches us that flourishing cannot just happen by accident. It also depends on opportunities people have and the relationship that make those opportunities possible. And we are also grateful for this very group that is hosting us. This project would not have been possible without the intellectual home that this research group offers us and has provided us. It is within this community that we experience what it means to be mentored with generosity, challenged with care, and supported to flourish as scholars. With these values, we took these values, and these values underpin this book. So we had to invite collegiality, intellectual generosity, reciprocity, and the commitment to creating spaces for others to grow, and values we first experienced within this space. So being part of these different communities really challenged us to ask not only how the capabilities approach can help us to understand others' lives, but also show how it should shape our own academic practice. We spend much of our time asking what opportunities other researchers have, what freedoms they are able to exercise, and what conditions enable them to flourish. So this book emerged from asking ourselves these very same questions. What opportunities can we create for other researchers? How might we expand the capabilities of scholars who might have otherwise be overlooked? And what would academia look like if it's treated as mentorship, if we treat it as collegiality and intellectual generosity, not as optional extras, but as essential conditions for scholarly flourishing? So in many ways, this book project is an attempt to live by those principles. It is not simply about publishing research, but creating opportunities, nurturing confidence, and recognizing that knowledge flourishes when people flourish. We also are very grateful to every contributor who trusted us with personal experiences, and to friends and colleagues who contributed to making this project possible through their services as reviewers. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Oliver. Maybe just to pick up from where you left. So the book does touch on navigating epistemic borders. It touches on the realities of research in the field, I guess, which is where your conversation with Melanie was happening in terms of your experiences in Zimbabwe. And also it does touch a lot on women's experiences in academia. And for us, while the chapters in the volume represent valuable scholarship and offers insight into the experiences of researchers working in diverse contexts, like Oliver said, for us, the real achievement lies equally in everything that happened before those chapters reached publication. So the book is as much about the process as it is about the product. And one distinctive thing that we want to mention about the book is that it draws on autoethnography. All the chapters draw on autoethnography, and this was a deliberate choice. Autoethnography reminds us that research is not produced from nowhere. As researchers, we are part of the stories we tell, and our identities, histories, and contexts shape the questions that we ask, the challenges we encounter, and the knowledge that we ultimately produce. So in the context of the Global South, this is particularly significant. Most researchers work within very complex social, political, and institutional realities that are often invisible in published scholarship. Through autoethnography, the authors of the chapters make those realities very visible, and they don't center themselves only, but also illuminate the conditions under which the knowledge that they engage with is created. And much more broadly, each chapter is a reminder that understanding research also requires understanding us as the researchers. And in doing so, the book offers not only methodological insights, but also a very honest account of what it means to create, to co-create, or to contribute to knowledge in various contexts. So in conclusion, there are a few things that we hope that this book project will make visible. And number one, that it is more than a collection of chapters, but reflects a way of doing academia, like what Oliver said earlier, a way that recognizes our shared responsibility to create spaces where others can think, write, question, and contribute. Secondly, it is an invitation not only to simply read the book differently, but to practice academia differently. If you engage with the chapters, it should motivate you to practice academia differently in the spaces that you find yourself in. And thirdly, what is said today really celebrates the two communities, I guess the three communities that Oliver mentioned, the decolonial group, the HDCA community, and HED specifically. It also celebrates the relationships that make the work that we do very possible. So let's hope that it is a reminder that when you find yourself in spaces, whatever spaces those are, value the relationships that you built in those spaces. And while the physical book might mark the end of this book project, it is not the end of an era. We hope that it is the beginning of an era. It is a step that motivates each one of us to continue building a higher education community in which more people beyond ourselves can actually flourish. Thank you. So the order of the presentations, we will start with Sarah Kisanga from University of Dar es Salaam, and she will be followed by Crescentia Masawe from the same institution. And then we will have Dr. Surav from Nazarbayev University. Our discussant today is also a very good friend of ours, I guess Mikateko and myself. We met Amoni in 2022 or 2023 at the SARChi conference in Aston University, and since then we've built that relationship. So thank you to all the contributors. I guess now we will give over to Sarah. You have 10 to 15 minutes to share a few things. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faith. Do you hear me?
Yes. Yes, very loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Sarah Kisanga, Associate Professor from the University of Dar es Salaam, School of Education, Tanzania. I'm going to present our book chapter titled Becoming Active Researchers Women in Tanzania's Higher Educational Institution. This is the third chapter in the book that we are launching today, and it is a co-authored chapter with Dr. Crescentia Masawe from Dar es Salaam College of Education. This is the outline of my presentation. I'm going to explain the rationale for the book chapter, the theory that were used to explain our experience, the methodology used, our personal accounts in terms of challenges and the coping mechanism, and also concluding remark. Why this chapter matters? We have decided to write this chapter because of persistent gender disparities in the global research landscape. UNESCO 2021 revealed that women represent only 33.3% of the world researchers. And these disparities differ across academic discipline and the geographical region. For example, in terms of academic discipline, we have more underrepresentation of women in STEM field compared to education, social sciences, and humanities. But in the global South, we experience more imbalance. Take, for example, South and West Asia. The inequality is 19%. The East Asia and the Pacific is 24%. But for Sub-Saharan Africa, it is stand at 33.5%. Now, what is the net result of this underrepresentation and imbalance? It results into ongoing gender disparities in senior academic and leadership position. And I'm going to explain the case study of University of Dar es Salaam. Currently, we have 33 male who are full professors, with only 2 female who are full professors, who accounts for 6%. In terms of associate professors, we have 95 male who are associate professors, and only 22 female who are associate professors, who account for only 20%. But if we take the promotion which occurred recently, last month, no women were promoted to associate professor. All 6 successful candidates were men. And in terms of leadership, women in we have 32% of women who are in leadership, from top management to the head of department. So these disparities and the women underrepresentation inspired us to write this book chapter so as we can share our experiences in terms of challenges and the coping mechanism so that we can reduce the underrepresentation of women in research and in senior academic and leadership position. In terms of theoretical perspective, we employed intersectionality and ujamaa ideology to explain our experiences. Intersectionality was used to explain how our multiple identities intersect to create unique experience. And when I'm talking of multiple identities, I refer to a position of being a mother, a wife, a daughter-in-law, and academic staff. So the intersectionality theory examines the intersection of gender with the culture and other factors which are unique to Africa. And ujamaa ideology was used to explain our coping mechanism, especially the social support that we received to cope with challenges encountered. Ujamaa ideology emphasizes at collective responsibility, the mutual dependence. And for our case, me and Crescencia, we made use of social support from the family as advocated by ujamaa. The methodology used is qualitative research. We use it to explore our in-depth experiences of becoming active scholars in Tanzanian context. And we use autoethnographic design, where researchers become primary participants using our own academic journey. And this was well explained by Faith. So we used our personal narratives to connect our experience to the broader social and cultural issues that affect women in academic in Tanzania. So we shared our lived experiences as primary participants in terms of our challenges and the coping mechanism that we employed. So here are the findings. In terms of challenges in becoming active researchers, the first one was work-family imbalance. So in this, we experienced sometimes work demands interferes with the family life and vice versa. That is, family life interferes with work demand. So the demand as a mother, a wife, a daughter, and a daughter-in-law, again as academic staff or academician, we are challenging to me and of course my fellow Dr. Crescencia. As a mother, for example, I am responsible for the welfare of my children in terms of health, academic, social, and spiritual. All this, they need time. But also as a wife, I am responsible for the welfare of my husband. And as a daughter, I am responsible for my parents, especially when I'm required to attend a hospital visit, which sometimes they may take the whole day. But again, as an academician, I'm required to teach, to do consultants, and to engage in research. Another challenge was limited mentorship. And this resulted from underrepresentation of women in research and senior academic position. So we had few women who are role models and a lack of formal mentorship. And the other challenge was limited training in academic writing. When we completed our master's degree, it was so difficult for us to turn our thesis into a research article because of lack of training. So we struggled with academic writing with little formal training in it. But again, we experienced the gender roles, especially the household chores, especially during the weekend. Most of academic staff here at our university, they use weekend to write papers. But for a married woman, during weekend, you are required to engage in house chores. So it interfered with our ability to manage our time in research. But again, there were gender stereotype and discouragement. And this occurred from our fellow women who perceived being active researcher as a risk to our marriage. And it was taken largely as suitable for men and not for women. The coping strategies. First, we use the social support networks, especially the family support. For my case, my mother and my mother-in-law, they supported me to take care of my children when I had a deadline to accomplish. But also the relative and my spouse were very supportive to me. Number two was research collaboration. We decided, me and Crescencia, to engage in co-authored papers with colleagues, both male and female colleagues. But again, we engage in a co-authored paper with the postgraduate students, the students that we supervise, the PhD students and the master's students. The advantage of research collaboration include, it reduced our time required to write a paper because of the shared responsibilities. But number two, it enhanced our research skills because of the shared knowledge and the experiences among the authors. But also it improved the quality of our paper because we involved diverse perspectives in the same paper. Most importantly, we used the writing retreats. And this, for me and Crescencia, is what works best to manage limited time among female academics. So we engaged in an individual and a collaborative retreat. I remember I engaged in about 5 individual writing retreats, which were self-funded, but also 4 collaborative retreats. So we collaborated with a fellow female academic staff. And among the 4, 2 were funded by one, University of Dar es Salaam, and another one was UN Women, and the rest were self-funded. Lastly, it is faith in God. We used this as emotional support, especially during times of doubt, exhaustion, and stress. In conclusion, I can say barriers should never define women's potentials, but rather they should inspire women to demonstrate their strengths, resilience, and excellence. When women thrive in research, university flourish, innovation accelerate, and the nation prosper. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. I think now we'll hand over to Crescencia, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sharing my slide. Is it visible?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
My name
afternoon.
is Crescencia Massa from Dar es Salaam University College of Education, together with my co-author, Professor Sarah Kisanga. I'm delighted to have you in to share our experiences as women researchers in the Global South. Our experience begins with a simple conversation, which later turned to a positive book chapter and other experiences. And this begins last December 2024, when my colleague and I were discussing about how can we diversify our publication. We used to write journal articles, but when it came to other like book chapters, we found ourselves like we are lagging behind. So it started as a discussion and then become a shared plan. Then we identify what is available opportunity for us, and later turn into a new direction of our writing a book chapter. For us, the main issue were to find the guidance. How can we really write a book chapter? Others, Sarah has already explained as well. For us, was like lack of mentorship. How can we go through the process? This is where mentorship become more important, to learn from each other as colleagues. And Oliver and Faith became more supportive to us to guide the process. So what we can say, the mentorship, it opened a door for us to be able to write our book chapter from different countries without meeting each other through digital technology. Oliver and Faith managed to guide us through the process. Their feedback helped us to build more confidence and make our journey more exciting and learning as we are pursuing the write-up. So in this, we learn new concepts, particularly Jama, which we didn't really have a thought. We can use it as a concept in our research. So for us, it was really exciting, and we keep using it in future writing. As we keep receive the revision.
Sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry, Crescentia, rather. I think we're struggling to hear you. I guess the device that you're using loses connection. It's not the device that we use to test, isn't it? You're breaking a little bit, so I don't know if you could maybe switch off the video. Would it help if you switch off the video?
I see that you have two devices. Maybe you can unmute the other and mute this one.
That might help. Maybe just switch off your the video on your current device and continue, and then let's see how it goes.
All right.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. What I can say about the mentorship opened the door for us. Why is I think something is wrong with my
Reshare again. You've just stopped. Stop sharing and reshare again, because I guess your using of two devices might be interfering.
two devices.
You probably need to click on the PowerPoint. Yeah.
Hello?
Yes.
And then now you can make it full screen.
Hello?
Something. Yeah, thanks. Presentation mode. Oh no. PowerPoint down and then presentation mode in the bottom right-hand corner.
Hello?
Hello. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Please go ahead the way it is, and then let's see.
Okay. I say the mentorship opened the door for us to be able to write the book. It is still coming, the echo.
It has echo. It could be that you have two devices, isn't it?
The mic is on.
Yes. Do you want to mute your mic in your current device then?
I
Say
think it
something,
will
let's
take
hear.
turning down the volume on one of the devices.
For my side, I don't hear any echo
No.
from her.
Okay, please go ahead, Crescentia.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can proceed, Crescentia.
Okay. We might need to, for the sake of time, maybe move on to Surav while Crescentia sorts out the audio issues.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes.
You can. Oh,
Okay, I think for the sake of moving on, Crescentia, I think the thing to do is it lower the volume on the other device or switch it off completely. But while you do that, I think we need to move on to Surav. Then we'll come back to you after Surav's presentation, if that's okay, please.
It's okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Over to you, Surav.
Good afternoon, Faith, and good afternoon, Oliver. It is wonderful meeting you, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to in your book, and not only giving an opportunity, rather teaching me what does the whole autoethnography means. I'm a clinical. Let me start with my background, and slowly I would get it into the paper. I'm professionally qualified as a speech language pathologist and audiologist, and I was hired by the Ministry of Health in Botswana, and I worked in the referral, one of the most important referral hospital in Botswana, that is located in Gaborone, the capital of Botswana. And then later I moved to the university. I worked there for in the hospital. I worked there for 5 years, and in the university I worked there for 20 years before I moved to Kazakhstan. So you can call me more of a Botswana rather than India, because I'm not sure if Emmanuel is around and he can vouch for that. Okay. So how did it, what's the whole essence of this issue? I don't know whether I would be able to share my screen. I don't know, does it give me that opportunity to share my screen? Does it? Can you?
You can share
Okay.
your screen if you go to the top right-hand corner.
Yes, I
before the
have
link
done
button.
it. Are you
Yeah.
able to see it?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay. Let it get. If you see it, then let me know. Otherwise, I would continue. Okay, for sake of time. Okay. So let me give an overview about the relationship between me and Emmanuel. I know like Emmanuel for last more than 20 years, and he joined me as a Emmanuel Mosola is my co-author, and so I knew Emmanuel from when when he joined the university as an undergraduate a student. Then he did his master's and he did his PhD, and I was supervisor in all the three areas. Then we started writing together a lot of papers. Then we had an opportunity to do the based on a consultancy. We started a consultancy that focused on situation of people with disabilities in Botswana, and in one of that, there were a lot of women with disabilities, and we are specifically interested in the access to health, how the women with disability access to health, because during interviews, that was one of the major issue they raised. But this paper is not about that issue about women. It is about how I change. It's actually, I'm sorry to use the word I initially, and then we'll move to the we. So the first of all, as you understand, and it is by default, I'm a male, and by default, I'm non-African, and I have a position of being a professor in the university. So it was like a kind of a created a aura kind of, because we were a clinical researcher and focused disability predominantly from a medical perspective rather than from the other human rights or social justice perspective. So this was a big battle for me to overcome that medical, the pathologyness or of the disability, to approaching more from a social and other dimensions. So this was so that took for a long time for me to change my ways of doing research, and it was a big learning for me. It wasn't easy initially because the program that I was teaching is special education. So special education itself is built on the understanding of medical perspective rather than the social dimensions. So, during that process, it took almost like a couple of years for me to understand the issues about disability. And then I started questioning myself that I had to change a fundamental shift from the researching on to researching with. So this really created a kind of and inner conflict in me, and I had to change my way of doing research. And Emmanuel comes in that by that time he finished his master's, and so we started is to keep talking about it. And then when I used to approach this, how about working from this approach of researching with. Now, this is also a big shift because there are a couple of issues that are important to discuss here. And from the I would say from the book chapter perspective. So first of all, the power and positionality. These are the two major issues, and which are the potential, it creates potential biases. Like for power, because if you are a medical professional, if you are working as a professor in the hospital, as well as in the university, it gives you some sort of a power and positionality. So how do you, the whole objective was, how do you neutralize? So collaborative ethnography is actually gave us that opportunity to reflect. So reflection here, because if you look from the intersectionality perspective, so it's a positionality is not a static level, it's an active recognition how my background interacted with the power inside the research. This was a serious battle for me because, and so as you know that in mostly in Southern Africa, or rather in Africa as such, my masculine default is an issue that's and for working with women with disabilities. This was a really because in male member professors they already carry some sort of an authoritative figures, and this actually it again keep bringing the medical aspects. So that had to be worked on, and then we started had an open dialogue. Now, how did you do that open dialogue? And like what we talk about the Ubuntu in Botswana, the focus is on the Botho. The Botho, the principles. So we approach from the principles of Botho. Botho is in a very simple way is to show respect. And you need to be transparent in our communication. There has to be a safe space for each voice, every voice, and there has to be a shared accountability. So in our research, in our dialogue, when we started talking with Emmanuel, it was more from not from a professor-student relation, it was more from a colleague who are in an equal platform. So that's actually a training for, and he also had to learn to communicate, because that is also equally some sort of a focus where you are very respectful being a student. But I didn't want that. We wanted to come into the same platform so we could criticize each other's work and come into the same level. So that was also came in our paper, in our book chapter. Now, so therefore, we can call it was a collaborative autoethnography, but I would put it as a two phases. One phase was individual reflexivity that came from me, and the joint reflexibility or bringing up a critical dialogue that was equally important. So both of us, like I'm an Indian origin and a professor at the university, male, doing a research with being a non-disabled, doing a research on people with disability. On the contrary, Emmanuel, he is from Botswana. He had a partial issues with his eyesight because I think he lost one of his eye when he was very young. And then he also is a male, and he was also had his master's degree in special education, was a teacher. So all of them, so both of us had to neutralize our power, and then it was a joint reflexivity. So this is some sort of a process that we utilized. So how did you do it is, first of all, we had to neutralize our power and positionality between the researcher and within the participant. Now, during the participant, now we have talked about between the researchers. Now, how did you neutralize our power and positionality? So here what we did, which has not been reflected, I'm giving the background of how we did it. So during that, the consultancies that we were doing, we invited everyone in that in a seminar, and then we asked, what are the critical problems that you want us to reflect? And so it was more from the grassroots. They started talking about what are the major issues they would like us to investigate more about the situation. So when we were discussing with the women, their health issues became the predominant focus, as a person being on a wheelchair, or maybe a deaf, or maybe the other like a sighted problem. So this is then we started thinking. We also jointly thought that we can't change our being male, and so we need to change a bit of our to challenge our dominant paradigm of like a medical aspect. So we wanted to make it more equitable. So what happened was, like in that process, there was a research assistant. We recruited a person who is had a spinal cord injury, was a wheelchair based. So we said that among you, why don't you choose somebody as our research assistant? So that we wanted to refocus our attention from the researching on to research with them. And particularly, Emmanuel already had experienced his own issues of having disabilities when he was a young person going to school because of being stigmatized if you don't have if you look a bit different compared to another person. So this stigma carried on, but however, Emmanuel is a smart guy who managed to overcome all his issues and became a very important and very prominent disability researcher in Botswana, and not only in Botswana, maybe even in the Southern Africa. So what did we, this was the process. So in terms of the content, if you focus on content, just let me again capitalize, maybe being a professor, let me profess. So
Okay,
that would be the
Professor, you have 1 minute to
yes.
round up, please.
So that is exactly what I'm coming into. So so what I would like to say here is more like a I have talked more about the issues about it. So what does this this chapter contribute to extend the intersectionality to turn inward? What do I mean by that? Sometimes we apply the intersectionality from a person, from a disability and his gender and other. Sometimes it's important to reflect ourselves, what is our own position, and that is very important, and intersectionality gives that opportunity. I think this is something that and the other issue that both are operationalizing or using both as a principle in a Southern framework is equally important, which has not been and which has not been well used in disability research. So that is also in our one of the issue that where this paper talks about. So what are the 5 key takeaway, if I have to say, is I would say positionality is a practice. It's not a statement. Intersectionality can be turned inward. Southern epistemology is restructure the research. And collaborative action research answers that inside outside perspective and allows one to reflect. So it's a critical reflection is possible only through such kind of an approach. And for us, masculinity, I don't say it was a challenge, rather it became an opportunity for us to deliver to counter that that masculinity and become more neutralized in terms of the not only like when you are doing the research along with our participants. So therefore, in disability research, it is very important that it is important to do more and more participatory research rather than doing more of a like a going as a survey or doing more like taking an interview and then come back and analyze and write something. So what lesson did we learn from that? Reflexivity is an ongoing. It's not a one-time affair. Secondly, it's like inequalities are there, and there has to be a shared decisions, and this is something that we also learned during this process. And thank you very much for your kind listening.
Very much. Thank you very much. I will try you, Crescentia. We've got 5 minutes for you, if you can and are able to share your slides now. Or you can talk without sharing your slides, actually, if that helps.
That'll be better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I want to share our experiences of writing collaborative a book chapter between me and my colleague, Professor Sarah. And our journey began as a small conversation, like how can we diversify our writing for promotion, as we have been writing journal articles for long and we didn't really have any skills on how can we write a book chapter. Soon after our conversation Sarah met Oliver, and Oliver shared an opportunity for us to be able to write a chapter about the experiences of the Global South women researchers. And me and Sarah, we conceptualize what can we really write, but we find ourselves like, as we are struggling to write as a women, we took it as an opportunity for us to develop our book chapter. So what we can say through guidance from Oliver and Faith, their feedbacks, frequent revision, frequent meeting, it helped us to learn through the process, and we managed to learn new concepts like Ujamaa concept, how can we integrate to our own daily writing, and new methodology, autoethnography for us was the new, and we learned and we managed to write our chapter on that perspective. So what we can say, something that for us we see like it's a difficult, it becomes an encouraging process, and the chapter grew up and the process become more, what we can say, rewarding. What can we say we benefit from the process? One is the expanded our research output. Me and Sarah, we managed to produce the book chapter that she shared the findings. And additionally, me and Sarah, we produced 2 additional book chapter individually and another joint book chapter. And another benefit which can say, Sarah used the book chapter as an evidence for scholarly productivity during her promotion to associate professor. And what you can say, it pays forward. Like myself, I mentor one of the junior colleagues to write a book chapter, and now the chapter have been accepted for publication. What I can say, the partnership continued to grow through shared writing, giving each other the feedback and support, particularly between us and for the next generation scholars. What I can say is like a takeaway, a small conversation, like a thought on what you can you rewrite if you shared with someone else can lead into a good, what you can say, an outcome that can make someone to write a thing. Like it starts with just a mobile conversation and it ends with 1 chapter, 2 chapters, and mentor other colleagues. So what we say, guidance is very important in terms of seeking mentorship in area where you find yourself, you are weak, particularly for us as researchers. We cannot really having it all during our studies. So guidance can transform uncertainty into confidence, can help to shape the ideas and become more stronger projects, and can open pathways for publication and promotion. And what I can say, another takeaway, we can grow together. Success multiplies when shared with other colleagues, and it turns into next generation achievement. So a wider network of support is very important. And I can conclude by saying that when women support women, we can build the next generation scholars of women. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all the authors and the presentations. I think now we move over to our discussant, Amoni. Please, you have 10 to 15 minutes so that we can leave at least 20 minutes for questions.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate very much this opportunity to discuss. I have from the very beginning to disclaim that I am not a professor. I am only a doctoral student, so don't expect very much. Please, I have to say that from the very beginning. So I mean, it's very humbling to be discussing this work. I am from Uganda, born and raised in Uganda. I am currently situated as a doctoral student in 2 universities in Sweden, at the University of Borås and Lund University. My research is in higher education broadly, teacher education specifically. And I research what I call community-oriented praxis in teacher education, preparing teachers for flexibility to the different community contexts they might be in. Now to the discussion. I want to start by congratulating the writers and the editors on this very, very well put together volume, and also on a successful collaboration process. Anyone who has participated in collaboration knows how much work, how much planning, how much time, how much intellectual toll it takes to put this together. And so I also appreciate the possibility to participate in the webinar series at the University of the Free State. I haven't been there physically, but I feel like I belong from the many sessions that I have participated in. So thanks to our initial meeting, Faith and Professor Matebula for enabling this. To Professor Oliver Mutanga also, we have interacted quite a lot. And to Professor Melanie Walker, because I have, I feel like I'm familiar with your name, both through LinkedIn and through the chats that I've had with your colleagues that you've mentored. I feel that all your mentees are in good hands. Yeah, I envy them. All right. So my reading of this book is that it has an expository agenda and a transformative agenda. The expository agenda is pursued and met by highlighting and documenting experiences of real people in real context and in practices of education and research, interacting with contemporary but also historically encumbered systems. So I feel that that expository agenda is presented as a big reminder to the times we're living in and the systems and structures we're working in as academics. And the transformative agenda is met by critiquing the happenings, experiences, and practices with decolonial and epistemic lenses, as Mutanga in the introductory chapter highlights, but also as others in the subsequent chapters have explicitly expressed and illustrated. So in this discussion, I felt that one way to express my own communion with the authors, and as I trust many of us in the audience, is that I could relate many of these described experiences and practices with my own work and experiences as a Ugandan scholar, currently situated and researching in Sweden. Some of these reflections have been expressed in the paper titled Between Ubuntu and Praxis in Subjective Positionality in Shaping Cross-Cultural Research and Researcher Identity. Then that paper is published in the special issue that Professor Mutanga mentioned in the International Journal of Social Research Methodology, to which the 2 editors of the volume we're launching today invited me as contributor. And for that, and the opportunity to discuss today, I'm grateful to you, Faith and Oliver. Now, my reading of this book, I really felt that it's a bit of a fireplace where we are venting and telling to each other what we are going through, and also the beauty of the humility to tell our stories, but also express our vulnerabilities and express some sort of community where we can together name things, and ethnography is a tool that helps us to do that. So I didn't feel like I was reading about other scholars. I generally felt like I was reading with you. And my engagement with the book was what I could call I tried to read within the chapters and between the chapters and beyond the chapters by trying to associate this with my own work, but also with other scholarship. I could have gone much further, but you know, I had this week I had to juggle a few academic and gender and personal family obligations this week. So I was really almost dropping off say this session because it was quite too hard. So when I read Masawe and Kisanga's chapter on the gendered responsibilities, I could recognize this, except from a flipped side, juggling academic work with gendered family and social responsibilities, but I also see a bit of societal transformation. The traditional man in an African setting that I grew up in, when you come to the diaspora, things become a bit different.
Sure.
I mean, I live in a very nuclear family, so I don't have the luxury of aunties and uncles taking care of my wife when she's not fine, or my children. So that takes a bit of a toll on academic life as well. So one thing has really stayed with me, well, many things, but among them, one particular segment of a sentence was heartbreaking. When Yuki writes on page 87 of this book in her chapter, "This chapter is my farewell to academia." Now, for context, if you haven't read the chapter, this is a doctoral student who has gone through a lot of suppression, epistemic, but also emotional suppression, that she had to leave her position as a doctoral student. And she writes that this chapter is my farewell to academia. The duty of care, where is it in academia? One of the things that professors and mentors in academia working with PhD students, now I have the ticket to speak for doctoral students. Yes. One of the things that our professors need to understand is that you don't become a doctoral student as a tabula rasa. You have come from somewhere. For crying out loud, it is a vetting process to even get in as a doctoral student. So you don't really come from nowhere. And this, added to the epistemic challenges that this student has had to navigate from her indigenous knowledge and into a dominant discourse, for me, that, well, I really don't know beyond what she describes, but I think and have experienced that there is a lot to do on the side of mentors, but also academic communities. So academia is not only an intellectual space, and as the chapters have mentioned, it's also, there is also a need for the duty of, for dispensing of the duty of care. I feel that no scholar should ever have to write that or say that statement. This chapter is my farewell to academia. But I'm also comforted by her resistance spirit, as many chapters have mentioned. The spirit of the book is such that we have a resilience environment where we try to endure such oppression, epistemic and otherwise, but also a resistance spirit, which is advocated in the chapters And I think that is also highlighted in the final chapter as Faith tries to tie the different strings together. I'm inspired by, even if she walks away, she says, this chapter is my farewell to academia. And though I am unsure about returning, I am certain that if given another chance, I will hold on to my beliefs more firmly. That is the spirit, resistance spirit. So I read her statement not as giving up, but as retreating to re-strategize, but holding on to an epistemic stance that she truly believes in. So the book gives a lot of experiences that I recognize from epistemic friction, whether in academic spaces, but also in development research, like NGOs, where Gore from Zimbabwe and South Africa has highlighted the different worlds in which she has researched. When before I came to academia, I worked with an NGO in Uganda myself, and in many ways, the experiences already contained in this book call for navigating the worlds that I can recognize in my own, both worlds, from development research, but also from academia. The burden of having to translate community experiences into donor reports. I think Mutanga mentions commodification of data or of experiences as data. I think please take note. I will request you to elaborate a little bit about that commodification, because it was attractive, but it was not, I did not sufficiently understand exactly what you mean by that. So please, if you can write that down, please. And then looking at projects into logo frames and translating lived experiences into categories that external funders must recognize if they are going to offer you their funding. So there is that aspect of having to be intelligible to someone who does not necessarily have your experience, but as currency. So that intelligibility, the experiences that are expressed in the in accessing the field, for example, multiple levels of authority, statutory, cultural, and personal and communal, as expressed in the different chapters, and securing not just formal consent, as in written, as Dr. Suraya and Muswela talk about in Botswana, where even a nod or a verbal expression is culturally appropriate, rather than the rigid requirement for written consent, as if it has to be the standard. So I would say that these experiences reflect a need for us to now turn our eyes to the agenda for transformation which this book has. And I have some reflections that I want to share, and I hope that this can trigger some reflection for both the authors and the audience, which we can discuss during the discussion time. The first one is, as called for in the book, but here I want to be very pragmatic, reimagining the infrastructures that shape research, which is from recognizing Global South knowledge as Faith notes, for example. But also, I want us to look at this very pragmatic point. Both academic and NGO experiences that I have worked in, but also as highlighted in the book, show that knowledge production is shaped by funding structures and accountability mechanisms. Currently, Global South institutions often invest some resources in publishing in Global North journals. Many of them are paywalled, as we have said. And South Africa seems to be leading in this respect, for example, by tagging some financial contribution to departments for research productivity. Please correct me if this has changed. So the question is, how about we redirect this investment to strengthening local journals, regional publishing platforms, and open access infrastructures? The idea is not new, I know. Francis Nyamno, for example, has previously decried in the article titled "Potted Plants in Greenhouses, a Critical Reflection on the Resilience of Colonial Education in Africa." The decry is that the fact that universities are internationally rated using criteria which few universities in Africa have contributed to establishing, but to which they subject themselves. African universities push lecturers to publish in international journals, yet do little to promote the journals on the continent. How about we invest the tokens that we give for publishing in high-ranking journals? How about we hire staff that are actually going to dedicate their full time to working to not only just writing their own papers, but also to administer journals and make sure that the quality checks and such platforms are running in a sustainable manner. And then rethinking academic promotions. Rather than reward publishing in externally standardized mechanisms like fast Q1 journals, how about requiring that maybe 50% of your publications must be published in African journals for you to cross this threshold, and 50% in maybe in wherever else you want to publish? Would that motivate quality as well? And then, of course, making sure that there is quality checks with the local journals, because yes, admittedly, there are predatory journals, but how do we make sure that we can fight the label of predatory journals and gain respect for the quality that we produce? Are we just accepting that for us to assert ourselves and have credible knowledge and publish credible knowledge, we have to go where we are suppressed and then use that to come home and say, okay, now you have, since you have passed that threshold, now you are a seasoned researcher? So those are my main remarks. I really think that that can be a direction. My main thrust here, especially for even seasoned professors, both in the Global South and in the Global North, I think epistemic ostracization comes from incomprehension of epistemic stances. And therefore, my question to us is whether we can imagine an emergence of a new field such as epistemic literacy. And the competence that comes with that epistemic literacy and as inter-epistemic competence. We have things like intercultural competence. But it appears that on the research landscape, we do not have the epistemic literacy that affords an understanding of the different epistemologies. Maybe in our struggle for recognition on the global academic scale, we are demanding for something that the people we are demanding it from do not actually have. How might we promote epistemic literacy that is going to help people to understand each other? Yeah. I was flagged for 1 minute, and those are my main points. If it is going to be desirable, I can ask particular questions to particular authors. I do have a few.
Well, I was flagging you so that you don't ask any questions.
Aha!
Please go
Now I
ahead.
know what
Please
your
ask.
trick is.
Please go ahead and ask specific questions to the authors. I'm sure they'll appreciate it.
Yes, okay, thank you. So I have already asked Professor Mutanga about the commodification of experiences. Could you explain a bit more about this and why this is dangerous? Of course, and if you could situate it in the particular research framework of ethnography and how this could be done without I mean, because autoethnography is about experiences. How can this actually happen? And then for Dr. Surai, my question is around collaborative autoethnography, where you and your co-researcher, Emmanuel, are presenting your experiences. Do you think that collaborative autoethnography would also be useful for highlighting the experiences of the researchers, of the participants themselves, rather than from your perspective as, I know you reflected on your own positionalities, but how might be this collaborative autoethnography also help to highlight the experience, the ways the participants have experienced the research process? And here I'm also thinking about Professor Mutanga's research with the Mvura people, where you also, as I have read, according to the citation, you have them as co-researchers and co-authors. If I don't know how that, I'm looking forward to reading that as well, if it hasn't come out. Yeah, and for Dr. Crescentia, I do note in your paper that you wrote, I am the only woman academic in my department. And I also note that this is a gender research center in the Dar es Salaam University College of Education. How does that work? I just want to understand. I will stop the questions because, yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Amoni, for that thoughtful discussion. I think I'll start with the respondents online, if that's okay. Then I'll end with you because you're in the room. So maybe starting with you, Prof. Suraf.
Thank you, Faith, and thank you for asking me the question. And this is really very important questions. That what do we do to change life for people for whom we are doing the research? That's equally critical for us to ask as a researcher. Now, what is important to recognize that collaborative action research is it's an ongoing process. So therefore, you have an opportunity to interact with the participants and for a longer time. And so during the process, what happened is one of the participant who was the research assistant, in fact, was like a lot of issues that she's trying, like it certainly changed the way she started reflecting her own perspective as a person being on a wheelchair. Now that encouraged her, that a small push of making her as a research assistant itself had changed her life to from being a researcher. I think ultimately she joined the university's disability support services as a peer counselor. So to some extent, these are some of it might look a very small increment of change in somebody's life, but the whole process of research not only changed the researchers, I think equally have an like an impact on on the participants. But one thing which is very important for me to be honest with you is like I learned more than I don't know who has learned. I have really learned about reflecting my own research, not only like from an epistemic lenses, as well as intersectionality lenses. Now, I think by writing this paper, it has not only made me a good researcher, I suppose it has made me a good human being too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I think because we're rushing against time, we're left with 4 minutes. I'll ask you, Crescentia, if you can maybe spend under 2 minutes responding to the questions.
Thank you. In Tanzania, in some areas, fields, we don't really have women. But currently, the Employment Act have been enacted to make sure that even the female who are competing for the employment in higher learning can be more promoted. At current, since 2024, when we wrote the chapter, at current, we have another female who have just recently employed as assistant lecturer. So the policy keep changing to make academically be more attractive to women. But in some departments, you will, like science in STEM, you will find women like 2 or 1 women. It's just common in Tanzania higher education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oliver, you've got a specific question there.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Amon, for the question. I'm not sure if I got it right, the argument that I was trying to put when I was referring to commodification of experiences. But maybe I was talking about not focusing so much on the subjectivity or the subject or the person who is sharing the experience, but to put it within the context in which that experience has been, that person has experienced whatever they have experienced. So not to make it so much an individual issue, but to contextualize it, which is in line with the autoethnography, that in as much as you are also part of the study as a researcher, you contextualize it rather than making it so much focused on you. I'm not so sure if I really answered you well on that one. Then you referenced a case where I had involved like the Tembo Mvura people as co-authors and co-researchers. The chapter is coming very soon, but what later happened was the editor of the book, Professor Elaine Chess, then said that because of ethics, I cannot refer them as the co-authors and co-researchers. So I had to remove and only put my name, but still, if it was my book, I was going to put them as co-researchers and co-authors for a reason that I would defend. But that's what happened, because really it's not my book. It's just a chapter in a book. Yeah.
Okay, so it's past, but I'm very curious and to hear what the people in the room have to say. But maybe we can end the session according to the time that we set, and then those that can remain in the room, we can remain and discuss, if that's okay. Okay. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank each and everyone online. Thank you to the authors. Amoni, I've got a lot of things that I was jotting down, but we will take on the discussion out of the space, because I agree to some of the things that you suggest. But in terms of thinking about ways going forward, it definitely needs a longer discussion. So thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Seraph. Thank you, Crescentia, for sharing your experiences, and everybody else for joining us.
Thank you very much. Yeah, all right.